How do we say this, my people? How can a man forget the woman who fed him when he had nothing? How can a man look at the same wife who woke up before sunrise, taught in a government school all day, sold plantain under the scorching Lagos sun, paid the rent, fed the family, and carried him through 2 years of unemployment, and still raise his hand against her? Because that is exactly what Jaden did. And the day he slapped Amanda was the day he made the biggest mistake of his life.
Now, Amanda and Jaden had been married for 10 years when trouble came and sat down in their living room like an uninvited guest with no plans to leave. This trouble came quietly. It came the day Jaden lost his job. The company he had given 6 years of his life to packed up one Friday afternoon and told everybody to go home. No warning, no proper severance, just big grammar about restructuring and a small envelope that finished before the month ended. Jaden came home that evening and sat in the parlor without removing his shoes. Amanda looked at him. She looked at the shoes still on his feet. She looked at his face, and she understood everything without him saying one single word. She sat beside him, held his hand, and said, "It is okay. We will be fine." Amanda said this not because she knew exactly how they would be fine. She said it because she had decided from the day she married this man that she was not a fair weather wife, and the weather was about to get very, very bad. They had 2 children, Felix, who was 8 years old and already too serious for his own age, the kind of child who observes everything like a small journalist gathering material, and little Zara, who was 5 and whose only concerns in life were her cartoons and whether there was juice in the fridge. Beautiful children, expensive children, the kind that remind you every month that school fees are not suggestions and textbooks do not fall from the sky. And with Jaden at home, sending applications going nowhere, attending interviews producing nothing, it was Amanda who stepped forward and carried that family. Her salary went into that home entirely. Rent, food, school fees for Felix and Zara, uniforms when the children outgrew the old ones, because children have the audacity to grow at the most expensive times, textbooks, electricity bills, generator fuel, hospital bills, Christmas clothes, everything. And she did it without presenting Jaden with a receipt, without calling her mother to report, without one WhatsApp status about what she was carrying. She just carried it, quietly, faithfully, every single day. Now, alongside her salary, Amanda has started a small unripe plantain business. Nothing glamorous, just a woman who looked at the gap between her salary and her family's needs and decided to do something about it. She would wake before the rest of the house, go to the market early, arrange her stall, sell through the morning, then come home to handle everything else. And Jaden, being at home with time available, would sometimes follow her to the market on Saturdays to help carry things. Now, my people, this is where the story gets interesting, because what happened at that market stall tells you everything you need to know about Jaden and his ego. Jaden would carry the bags from the house to the market, fine, that part he did. He would help set up the store, also fine. But the moment Amanda said, "Start calling customers," something would happen to this man, something physical. His voice would disappear. His eyes would find fascinating things to study on the ground. His body would begin a slow, quiet rotation until his back was no longer fully facing the street. Because Jaden was a man with a certificate on the wall and a former office title, standing in an open market shouting, "Come and buy plantain," in front of people who might know him, people from his church, his street, people who had seen him in work clothes, was something his ego was not prepared to negotiate. So he would stand behind that store holding plantain like a man who had been handed something he did not ask for. And when Amanda said, "Jaden, call them," he would produce something so thin and so quiet that the market swallowed it completely. Fresh plantain, good quality, in the voice of a man trying to whisper his secret in a stadium. Customers walked past without turning. Amanda would watch with one hand on her waist. "Jaden, they cannot hear you." Mama Eze from the next door 20 years in that market, voiced like a foghorn, would watch this performance, sigh deeply, then demonstrate without being asked. Fresh plantain, ripe and unripe, come and buy oh! Half the market would turn around. Jaden would look at his plantain like it had personally disappointed him. But the day the whole market never forgot was a Saturday when Jaden had dressed too well. Good shirt, nice trousers, decent shoes, looking like a man with a reservation somewhere, not like a man selling plantain beside Mama Izzy. They arrived at the market, Jaden took his position, and at that exact moment, two men walked in, former colleagues from his old office, men who knew him from the days of business cards and meeting rooms, men walking directly toward Amanda's stall because the universe had made its decision. The transformation was immediate. The plantain in Jaden's hand dropped 6 inches as his body executed a smooth, committed, fully professional rotation away from the street. By the time those men were level with the store, Jaden was facing the back wall with the concentration of a scientist who had discovered something of great importance in the wooden planks. Shoulders slightly raised, neck slightly shortened, he had made himself to the best of his ability structurally indistinguishable from the back wall. The colleagues passed, they bought something 2 stalls down and left. Amanda served her customers and said absolutely nothing. But Mama Eze caught Amanda's eye. Amanda looked back. Mama Eze pressed her lips together until they disappeared. Amanda looked away very quickly. Both women found extremely urgent things to do with their hands for the next 30 seconds because if either of them made one sound, they would both be finished. Jaden waited until those men had completely disappeared before rotating back. He straightened his shirt, adjusted his posture, and finally opened his mouth properly. Fresh plantain, come and buy. Mama Eze looked at him, nodded once, the way a teacher nods when a slow student has finally arrived at the correct answer. A woman stopped and bought. Jaden handed the money to Amanda with the expression of a man who had submitted a mountain and felt the achievement deserved acknowledgement. Amanda collected the money and continued serving the next customer without looking up. That was Jaden during the hard times. His wife calling customers, weighing plantain, counting change, while he performed wall studies and practiced invisibility in nice trousers. And Amanda never shamed him for it, never told that story at family gatherings, never used it during arguments. She let the man have his dignity, even when his dignity was genuinely hiding behind market planks. That was who she was. In the first year, she managed. In the second year, 24 months in, she was still standing, still going to work, still going to the market, still making sure Felix and Zara had everything, still praying with her husband every morning, a woman of steel wrapped in patience. Then, in the 23rd month, God answered. Jaden got a call. Real company, good position, real salary. He read that offer letter 3 times before he believed it. Then he shouted. And Felix ran from his room and Zara started crying and the neighbor's dog joined the confusion from outside. When Amanda heard, she covered her mouth with both hands and cried. Relief tears, the kind sitting behind your eyes for 2 years, waiting for permission to fall. They held each other and thanked God together, and Jaden looked at his wife and said, Amanda, I will never forget what you did for this family. Amanda smiled. We did it together. She meant every single word. The first month after Jaden resumed, my people, that first month, Amanda said to herself, this is the husband I prayed for. This is the man I knew was in there. Because Jaden came alive in that first month. He paid bills, he bought groceries, not the managing kind, the good kind. The kind where he came home with bags and Felix would run to see what was inside and Zara would follow Felix even though she did not know what she was running towards. He gave Amanda transport money. He handled a bill before she even mentioned it. Amanda called her sister. Things are back back to normal. She called Cynthia, "My husband is back." She exhaled. She relaxed. She believed with her whole chest that the hard season was behind them and they were walking into something good and new together. Then the second full salary arrived and everything changed.
My people, it was as if someone swapped Jaden for a different model overnight. New shoes appeared, not one pair, multiple. New clothes filled the wardrobe. An expensive wristwatch arrived on his wrist. Friday evenings became Friday nights. Saturdays became weekend outings. And at home, the bills he had promised to handle were gathering dust quietly in the corner. One day, when Felix brought home the school fees notice, Amanda set it where Jaden would see it. 1 week passed, still there. She mentioned it. Jaden said, "You paid it before now, just handle it for now." Amanda paid it, said nothing, but something tightened in her chest. When the landlord came for rent, Jaden told him he had personal commitments and needed small time. This landlord who had received rent on the correct date every month for 2 years, because Amanda made sure, that man stood at their door looking confused. Amanda paid the rent from her own money. When Zara needed textbooks, Jaden said he was broke that week. The man with the new wristwatch and the multiple new shoes was broke for his daughter's textbooks. Amanda bought them. She put them in Zara's bag and sat down with her thoughts. And her thoughts were not gentle. Then, the rain came one night and damaged Amanda's market store. Several bunches of plantains spoilt. For the first time in 2 years, Amanda genuinely needed help. She sat Jaden down calmly, explained what happened, showed him the numbers. No drama, no demands. Just a wife coming to her husband with a real problem, expecting a real partner. Jaden listened to everything. Then he said, "That business is yours." Amanda stared at him. "Just because you carried the family before doesn't mean I should carry everybody now. We should each handle our own money." The same man she fed when he had nothing. The same man she protected from embarrassment. The same man who hid behind her stall in nice trousers while she called his customers. That man was now talking about your money and my money. Amanda stood up and walked out of the room, not because she had nothing to say, but because what she wanted to say required a volume not suitable for that time of day. The following week, Jaden invited 6 office colleagues home without telling Amanda. He came home that evening and announced it casually while changing his shirt. "Some people from office are coming this evening, about 6 of them, nothing big." Amanda stopped folding the laundry she was folding. She turned slowly. "This evening?" "Yes, around 7. 6 people?" "Yes." Amanda looked at him for a moment. Then she said, "Okay." And she went back to folding laundry. Jaden felt victorious. She said, "Okay." His wife was coming around. He went and had a shower, feeling like a man who had successfully navigated a difficult situation. 7 o'clock came. His colleagues arrived. 6 people, well-dressed, coming straight from the office with work appetites and social expectations. They settled in the parlor. The conversation was good. Jaden was relaxed, laughing, playing the perfect host. 8 o'clock came. 8:30. His colleague Sandra, a sharp woman who noticed everything, looked toward the kitchen direction and quietly leaned toward her neighbor. His colleague Patrick sniffed the air subtly. Nothing, not a sound, not a smell, nothing at all from that kitchen. Then Amanda appeared from the bedroom, dressed beautifully, bag on her shoulder, looking like a woman who had somewhere important to be. She greeted every single colleague with warmth and a big smile. "Welcome, so good to see you all. Jaden talks about you people." She turned to Jaden and said sweetly, in front of all 6 colleagues, "Darling, I am stepping out. I have something to attend to. Everything in the kitchen is exactly as you left it." She smiled at the room. "Enjoy your evening, everyone." And she walked out of the house. My people, everything in the kitchen is exactly as you left it, meaning nothing. Absolutely nothing, because Jaden had not put 1 kobo toward food that day, had not bought anything, had not even mentioned food money to Amanda. He had simply invited 6 human beings into his house and assumed food would appear the way it had always appeared, through Amanda, quietly, without discussion, without contribution, without gratitude.
Amanda had simply declined to make food appear, and she had declined in front of 6 of his colleagues with a smile that was clean and so warm that nobody could say one word against her. Sandra said brightly, "So, Jaden, are we ordering?" Jaden laughed in a way that did not reach his eyes. Yes, let me sort that out." He ordered food for 6 people, expensive food, because these were office colleagues and the occasion demanded a certain standard. The food came, they ate, they had a good evening. But as the last person was leaving, Patrick pulled Jaden aside at the door and said quietly, "Jaden, is everything okay at home?" Jaden said, "Everything is fine." Patrick looked at him. "Are you sure?" "I am completely sure." Patrick nodded and left. Jaden closed the door. He stood in his parlor surrounded by empty takeaway containers he had paid for in a house his wife had vacated with a smile and a handbag, and something that had been simmering inside him for weeks began to boil.
Amanda came home later that night. The children were in bed. The house was quiet, and Jaden was waiting. He was not waiting with peace, my people. He was waiting with everything that had been building. The restaurant bills, the iron shirt, the unanswered embarrassment, the colleagues who had seen too much, the pride that had taken blow after blow and had finally decided it had taken enough. Amanda walked through the door. She set her bag down, and before she could even settle, Jaden started. "So you want to embarrass me in front of my colleagues? You could not just cook. You had to walk out like that in front of everybody?" Amanda looked at him, calm, steady, the way a woman looks when she has been expecting this conversation and has already decided how she will handle it. She said, "Jaden, when last did you drop money for food in this house?" Silence. "When last did you give me anything for groceries? You invited 6 people to eat in this house tonight. 6. What did you contribute? You bought new shows last week. You bought a wristwatch. You are paying for restaurant outings with your friends. But for food in your own house, for the children who eat here every day, you have given me what exactly?" Her voice was still calm, still level. "You want me to cook with sand and water?" And because it hit him like something physical, because he had no answer, because she was right and he knew she was right, and being right in front of him like that felt like an attack, Jaden raised his hand and he slapped his wife. The sound of it filled that room. Amanda did not stumble. She steadied herself. She looked at her husband, this man she had fed for 2 years, hidden from colleagues, prayed beside every morning, called customers for, protected in every possible way. She looked at him with an expression that was not anger. It was something quieter than anger, something more final. She straightened up. She said nothing. She went to the bedroom, she packed a bag, and she walked out of that house. For 3 days, Amanda disappeared. No calls, no messages, no location, nothing. The children were with relatives, and Jaden sat in that house alone. This house where suddenly there was no sound of her in the morning, no smell of anything cooking, no sense that the walls were being held up by anything. And he felt it. He felt all of it. Every room in that house told him exactly what he had done. On the 4th day, he went to work, trying to wear his normal face. Around noon, his colleague rushed in. "Jaden, come outside." Something in the voice made him follow without arguing. He came downstairs. A crowd had gathered at the gate. Staff were at the windows. People were recording on their phones. And then Jaden's heart stopped. Standing by the gate was Amanda, but she did not look like Amanda. Her clothes were old, faded, torn at the hem. Her slippers were worn to almost nothing. Her hair was rough and untied. She looked like a woman that life had picked up and dropped very hard.
Beside her was a wheelbarrow filled with unripe plantains. Jaden froze. What is this? Amanda did not look at him. She turned to the crowd and called out, "Fresh plantain, oh, sweet plantain, help a struggling woman, fresh plantain, oh." People began buying. Security guards bought, office cleaners bought, drivers bought, construction workers from the next building bought. A full crowd formed around her. One woman reached into the wheelbarrow and asked, "Madam, where is your husband? A fine woman like you should not be suffering like this." The crowd went quiet. Amanda lowered her eyes. Then she said softly, "My husband is dead." The crowd gasped. Jaden felt the blood leave his entire body. Amanda continued, voice quiet and steady. "The man who promised to stand beside me died. The man who respected me died. The man who appreciated my sacrifices died. The man I married, he is gone." People were staring. Some genuinely thought she was a widow. Others could feel the deeper meaning in every single word. An elderly woman near the front shook her head slowly. "May God comfort you, my daughter." Amanda smiled sadly. "Thank you, Mama." And she turned back to her wheelbarrow and continued selling.
Jaden stood at the edge of that crowd, unable to move. His manager was at the window above. He had heard everything. His colleagues were beside him. Patrick, Sandra, all of them. The same people he had spent months trying to impress with a new car and a wristwatch and expensive takeaway orders. Nobody spoke. Then one person turned and said quietly, "Jaden, is that your wife?" Nobody answered because everybody already knew. And for the first time, the very first time, Jaden saw himself clearly. He saw the market store, the wall he had studied while his wife called customers. He saw 2 years of rent she paid alone. He saw the morning she left the house before anyone woke up, the night she came home exhausted and still made sure everything was handled, the dignity she maintained for him in public while he was quietly falling apart in private. He saw all of it. And then he looked at the wristwatch on his wrist, the car in the lot behind him, the shoes on his feet, and none of it, not one single thing, looked impressive anymore. It all looked exactly like what it was. Amanda sold every single bunch in that wheelbarrow. Every one. Then she straightened up, turned the empty wheelbarrow around and pushed it away from that gate without looking at Jaden once. She walked away the way a woman walks when she has said everything that needed to be said and used 0 words to say it. That evening, Jaden did not go home. He drove until he reached a house he had not visited in months. He knocked. The door opened, and standing there, arms folded, head tilted, with the expression of a woman who had been expecting this visit and had already prepared her remarks, was Auntie Bisi. Now, my people, let me tell you about Auntie Bisi. Auntie Bisi was Jaden's father's senior sister, a woman of considerable life experience, a woman who was currently, at this present moment in time, living in her 4th husband's house, which means she had successfully navigated more marriages than most people had attended and had developed very strong opinions about all of them. When Jaden saw her face, something in him collapsed. He did not sit down, he did not clear his throat or look for the right words. He went down on his knees right there at the door. "Auntie Bisi, please help me." Auntie Bisi looked down at him. She looked at him for a long moment, the way a woman looks at something she has seen coming from a very far distance. Then she said, "Why?"
Jaden's voice broke. Amanda, who loved me, is disappearing. I can feel her going, and I don't know how to stop it. He could not finish. I slapped her auntie. I raised my hand to Amanda. Auntie BC was quiet for a very long moment. Then she said, "Get up." He stood. She let him inside. She sat across from him, folded her arms, and looked at him with the eyes of a woman who had been married 4 times and therefore understood, better than anyone in that room, exactly what a man looks like when he has thrown away something irreplaceable and has just understood what he has done. She said, "Jaden, I will say one thing only." He nodded. She said, "The woman who loved you is still there. You are the one who disappeared." The room went completely silent. My people, after Auntie BC said those words, "The woman who loved you is still there. You are the one who disappeared," the room went completely silent. Jaden sat with those words the way you sit with something that has rearranged everything inside you. He thanked Auntie BC. He got in his car and he drove home. Meanwhile, my people, Amanda was sitting at home perfectly fine. She was not crying. She was not waiting by the window. She was not rehearsing what she would say when he walked through that door. She was sitting at the kitchen table with her notebook open, a pen in her hand, planning her market for the next day. Which supplier to call, which route to take, where her new store location would be. Because Amanda had made a decision. Tomorrow after work, she was going back to the market. New location, new energy, same woman. Her husband's foolishness had not stopped her salary from entering. It had not stopped her children from needing to eat. Life was continuing, and Amanda was continuing with it. She knew Jaden. She knew his ego was his biggest enemy. She knew that somewhere, somehow, that ego was going to have to bow, and when it did, she was going to be found doing exactly what she had always done, moving forward, taking care of business, unbothered. Then she heard the door, not opened normally, opened by force, the kind of force that belongs to a ran who has been to Auntie BC's house and has been completely reorganized from the inside out. Jaden walked through that door, and the moment he saw Amanda sitting calmly at the kitchen table with her notebook, with this woman who had pushed a wheelbarrow to his office, sold every bunch of plantain, walked away without looking at him once, something in him dissolved completely. He did not sit down, he did not clear his throat, he did not try to negotiate his dignity. He went down on that kitchen floor. "Amanda, I am sorry. I am completely, totally, fully sorry for everything. For the car, for the money, for dismissing your business, for the colleagues, for Amanda, I will never, Amanda, I will never." He could not finish the sentence. Amanda looked at her husband on the kitchen floor. She looked at him for a long moment. Then, my people, she laughed. Not a small laugh, a wide, full, genuine laugh. The kind of laugh that comes from a woman who has been through 2 years of hardship, several weeks of warfare, a wheelbarrow performance outside a Lagos office building, and is now watching a fully grown man with an expensive wristwatch kneeling on a kitchen floor. She laughed and it filled that kitchen completely. Jaden looked up at her from the floor, confused. "Amanda," she said, "get up," still smiling. "Get up and sit down. Because if you want peace in this house, we are not doing it with just words. Words are cheap, Jaden. I have heard your words before."
Jaden got up. He sat down. He was ready to agree to anything. Amanda closed her market notebook, opened a fresh page, and picked up her pen. She said, "We are writing a contract." Jaden blinked. "A contract?" "A contract," Amanda repeated pleasantly. "You will sign it. It will have your name on it, and it will list exactly what your responsibilities are in this house every single month. because we are not going back to assumptions and you paid before now and I am sorting it out. We are going to clarity, written clarity with a pen. My people, Jaden looked at this woman who had just pushed a wheelbarrow to his office that morning, and he understood that he was not in a position to negotiate the terms of this negotiation. He said, okay. But then, before Amanda could finish writing, Jaden picked up his phone. Amanda watched him. He opened his banking app. He found Amanda's account number. He typed in an amount. He pressed send. Amanda's phone buzzed on the table. She picked it up. She looked at the notification. She looked at the amount. She looked at Jaden. She looked at the amount again. My people, the amount that entered Amanda's account that night was not small. It was not a gesture. It was not something to show I am serious. It was a full year of Amanda's salary. A huge, significant, eye-opening amount of money transferred in one move on a Tuesday night on a kitchen floor by a man who had finally understood what 2 years of someone's life was actually worth. Amanda stared at her phone for a very long time. Jaden said quietly, "It is not enough. I know it is not enough, but it is a beginning." Amanda set her phone down. She looked at her husband. Something moved across her face. Not quite tears, not quite a smile. Something in the space between the two, where a woman processes the fact that the man she chose, the man she carried, the man she had been fighting to reach, has finally arrived. She took a breath. She looked back at her notebook and she said, "Fine, now let us do this list properly." She wrote out the list, every responsibility, every bill, every monthly commitment with his name beside it. School fees, Jaden. Rent, Jaden. Electricity, Jaden. Generator fuel, Jaden. Grocery contribution, Jaden. Children's medical, Jaden. She wrote it clearly, she wrote it completely, and when she was done, she turned the notebook around and pushed it across the table to him. "Read it. If you agree, sign at the bottom." Jaden read every line. He did not argue with a single item. He picked up the pen, he signed. Then he looked at Amanda and said, "Can I get a bowl of rice?" My people, this man, on his knees 20 minutes ago, signed a contract 30 seconds ago, now asking for rice. Amanda looked at him. She looked at him the way a woman looks at a man who has, somehow, despite everything, remained completely and fully himself. Then she stood up. She went to the kitchen. She served 2 bowls of rice, one for him, one for herself. She came back to the table. She set his bowl in front of him. She sat down with her own, and they ate together. In that kitchen, in that house, in the quiet that comes after a very long, very loud, very necessary storm. No dramatic music, no big speeches, just 2 people eating rice at a kitchen table, a signed notebook between them, a large transfer sitting in an account, and the kind of peace that is not fragile because it was not given for free. It was fought for, it was earned, it was written down and signed at the bottom.
I hope you enjoyed this story. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we meet in the next episode. Bye!